We've lined up the top stars from Hollywood and from all over the world to entertain you on a giant screen with a few colorful motion pictures you've been hearing about and reading
It's
about.
showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
We're delighted to have you with us. They're Drive-in Theater.
You'll find something to please you to add to your evening's enjoyment.
Is pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Howdy doody, boys and girls. It's Monday night. It's 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. It is April 12th, 2021. You're tuned into the Drive-in Speakerbox. I'm your host, Bo, the boom operator.
And I'm Jake the Grip.
And Velvet Santa in the chat. What's up, man? Long time no ho-ho. How are things? I don't know. You want Velvet Santa? I feel like a Velvet Santa would come down the chimney and be like, oh ho ho, ooh, you know, and...
oh, man. Elvis Santa would have been the coolest because he would have just served people breakfast in their home, opened all the board games and made them play with him, stop time across the world and be like, you got to eat breakfast and play games with the king.
Dude, and then he leaves the building and everybody's like, and he shoots back up the chimney with care. Shout outs, got Blake over in the Facebook chat. Shout outs to the gang over at Rock Hill Studios. Howdy doody, guys. What's going on? We have got a show tonight. We are going to be talking about movies like we always do. Man, I have been up in this podcast studio all freaking day today. It has been a microphone heavy day for me today. It's really, really weird. This morning me and some bar colleagues of mine, we were competing in a national bar feud, which is like Family Feud, but for people that work in the bar industry. And our team is crushing it. We're the Derek Zoolander School for guys who don't feud good but want to learn how to do other things good. Is our team name? Oh yeah, and I have like animations set up with like blue steel and stuff. It's pretty cool.
What's the one that stops Mugatu's shuriken dead?
It's the blue steel, man, right?
No, blue steel's his normal look. What's the one that like he saves the prime minister with?
Oh, I forget. I don't know. But it was a lot of fun. We destroyed it. We're going into the final four on Bar Feud, so that's pretty awesome. And then I was up here with the Arkansas Cinema Society, the ACS, Cody Ford, the NWA chapter head of that. We were talking Academy Awards. There's a podcast they're going to be releasing, I want to say tomorrow or the next day. That's me and one of the writers from the Northwest Arkansas Democratic.
You're talking about award show?
We're talking about movies. Talking about movies because I made it very clear my stance on award shows, as everybody already does. And one of the other panelists, Philip, he writes for the Northwest Arkansas Democratic Gazette, reviewing movies. He and I both shared the same sort of kind of just natural disdain for award shows. And so go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say like Miss Yoon from Minari when she got her BAFTA the other day, and she said that British people were snobby and she would have never expected to get an award from snobby people. And then they were like, was that a joke or was that for real? She's like, I mean, for real. Y'all are snobby people. And they're
thank
like,
you.
Yeah, they're like, what about Oscars? And she's like, dude, I'm from Korea. People know me there. None of y'all know me. I don't care about Oscars. Whatever. Quit asking me questions.
Oh, yeah.
So she's getting awards and feels the same way.
Well, we talked a lot about Minari, actually, and we talked about just a lot of stuff and, you know, the movies that were nominated and kind of what's going on in the state of just films, man. And it sounded a lot like an episode of the Drive-in Speakerbox. Velvet Santa said, what's the name of the pod again? It was Arkansas Cinema Society. Let's see if I can find their blog here really quick. I think, you just go to arkansascinemasociety.org, and they have a blog tab. You can go up there, and I think that'll probably be coming out this week. You can tune in if you want to listen to me some more talking about movies. It's over there with our friends at the Arkansas Cinema Society. So that was fun. And then now I'm up here talking more movies.
Yeah, now it's the good one.
It's the good show. Let's see here. Velvet Santa asks, have you ever seen Marlon Brando's acceptance speech for Best Actor? Speaking of Marlon Brando, He's weird. I don't know if it's out there. You can Google it.
If you've ever read anything about the jungle one, the one in the jungle, the
Heart of Darkness, Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now. Thanks.
I mean, really, my favorite Brando. My favorite Brando is the
Dr. Moreau.
Yes, the Dr. Moreau Brando, where he's just all like painted white and in the hat. I feel like that is
because
the most.
they changed the movie because he's like, I don't want to do that.
And they're like, "Come on, Mr. Brando," and he's like, "No."
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna wear sunscreen and a mosquito net, and you're gonna have to live with it.
And they're like, "All right, we'll shoot around this guy." But I feel like that was the most. He was in his final, truest form. Velvet Sentence says, yeah, he sent a Native American woman to accept it for The Godfather. I mean, there's a lot of really oddball characters in Hollywood. Some very weird acceptance speech. I mean, for the longest time, what's his name? Director Thin Red Line, really famous, awesome American director. I cannot believe that I'm Terrence Malick. Terrence Malick. He's been nominated for almost everything he freaking does, and he never goes to the award shows, and he never even gives them. He doesn't like his picture being taken. So anytime he's nominated, it's the same old picture from like the '90s with him in this hat, and it's so weird. Some of these people are strange. Hollywood's a weird place, you guys, and a lot of weird, just quirky human beings that occupy the celebrity sphere. But anyway, let's talk about what's going on in the news. There's some stuff happening. There's some movies coming out. There's Godzilla vs. Kong set to be the highest grossing film of the pandemic, which is the dumbest metric. We've often made fun of on the show, like any record that a movie can set, they're gonna advertise it. Mm-hmm. They're gonna be like, the biggest opening on a Tuesday in November that Mother's Day happened to fall on, and there was a tornado in San Francisco ever. And yeah, they've done that with Godzilla versus Kong. Because I mean, it hasn't even gotten 100 million yet, right? Like,
yeah, there's a.
I don't have my data out here yet. I mean, I'll tap around.
I mean, how could it come close to making 100 million? Nothing has.
It's so far grossed $70 million at the box office in its 2 weeks in release, which is pretty dang huge for pandemic. But the biggest movie of the pandemic.
Or just something that's just universally panned. Everyone hates it, including us. And then you have all the Snyderverse people review bombing it as well, as if you needed to, because it's such a bad movie.
Oh yeah, you don't need it. You don't need it. Or like when you come in and you're like, I'm the tallest guy in the room, and you're the only guy in the room. It's like, well, yeah, of course.
I generally am the tallest guy.
I mean, this is true. It's true.
You know what, though? Carl asked if the producer's here because he wants to talk about Mortal Kombat. He's not, but I am. And you know what? They pushed Mortal Kombat back another week. Just a week. It comes out on like the 23rd.
April 23rd. Yeah, it's coming.
It was supposed to come out this Wednesday. The 14th was the original plan, and I guess they pushed it.
Did you find any hard concrete facts on why they pushed it back? Or
no, I was so excited to watch it this week, and then I looked and they're like, 23rd. I'm like, why are you doing this to me?
So I have theories. I always have my weird little conspiracy theories.
Probably put it on a weekend because the movie theaters didn't want to do Wednesday openings, maybe.
Well, Wednesday open is what benefited Godzilla versus Kong, but
they
I think
saw that their other movie is being successful and they want to give it a little breathing room.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Is they're like, there's no current competition in the theater sphere
except for themselves.
So let's space it out because everybody's waiting for it. People are getting vaccinated even faster. More and more people are running out to public spaces, and I think that they're just waiting to cash in.
If it comes out on Friday the 23rd, that's when I get my second one, doggy.
Double up that.
Yeah, hopefully I won't feel like crap all weekend from my second dosage, and I can go watch some Mortal Kombat.
I know this isn't movie related, and I know that this is going to be kind of gross, and I know the grip's gonna get a little squeamish and grody here.
Squeamish.
I'm gonna be like, oh gosh, can we change the subject, guys? But I'm double vaxxed, right? I got my second poking, and
well, when you say it like that,
I'm gonna be real with y'all. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I was very real. I was like, hey man, real talk. What do your poops smell like? And
yeah, this is not what our movie-going audience is here for.
No, but
I'm
I
not going to
mean-
be squeamish about it, but I'm just going to say this is not.
But real science,
what our fans
here.
and friends and family are here
Because my movements have seriously taken on a very unique aroma since I got my second vaccine.
Doggy,
and it's
you-
weirded me out.
You talk about your diet and movie snacks on this show enough to make it where no one's believing this is coming from
hey man,
your
I
vaccination.
have a very colorful and exotic diet.
I saw the kind of food that you ordered when we watched
Yeah,
Zilla
and-
v. Kong.
And you know what? I've been eating that kind of shit for a long time, and I know what that kind of shit smells like. And everything
Unbelievable.
is kind of smelling the same. And like, there's people from across the world here on the podcast. Anybody double vaxxed having this weird problem? I know that there's a smell plague going around with COVID stuff, and I never had it, so I didn't lose my sense of smell. But I know that there's people having phantom smells and all this kind of stuff. It's weirding me out, guys, and I'm reaching to you. It's weirding me out.
Now our fans are echoing me and saying that this ain't.
Come on.
This ain't it. Hey, you know what? Speaking of stinky dookie, check this out.
Movies.
Not just Zilla v. Kong, but the other big Warner Brother thing that came out not long ago, Justice League. Still more things coming out about Whedon and what a butthole he is.
They're never going to stop.
Apparently, during the filming of the Justice League reshoots, when Whedon came in, he threatened to tank Gal Gadot's career because she resisted some of his rewrites, and she said this doesn't jive with the character or what we're doing in the Wonder Woman movie or what we've done in Batman vs Superman, and you're changing how the character is and it doesn't flow and I don't like it. And he said, you're going to do it or you won't work in Hollywood anymore. And she's like, bro, really?
Yeah.
Look at me, Gal Gadot.
Like,
and then
that's something that only like 1940s Hollywood execs say.
Mhm.
You'll never
You
work in this town again, Gal
Yeah,
Gadot.
yeah. So
You get those yams and you scram.
Yeah. So he threatened that to her and then talked mad trash on her and Patty Jenkins. And unlike Cyborg, Ray Fisher, she just went straight to the studio heads and was like, hey, listen, Whedon is stinky bow valve movements and I'm done with him and we're over it. And they're like, okay. And they like made him shut the hell up about threatening her career, but it didn't stop him from talking trash on her, Patty Jenkins. And then Patty Jenkins came in an interview and she's like, well, you know what? Here's a secret for you. Every one of the DCEU Warner Brothers directors fucking hates Joss Whedon and his dumbass Justice League movie.
Nobody likes
And she's
Joss.
like, I'm ignoring it. The other directors are ignoring it, like Shazam and everybody. She's like, no other director involved in DC gives a crap about Joss Whedon or his dumbass Justice League. And she's like, we all just ignore it because we hate him and that movie. And I think that's awesome.
That is pretty
she's
badass.
just like, you know what? As someone who's like making DC money and has successful movies that people do like, screw him. So that's pretty cool on that front. That
Well, speaking of DC, I was having this conversation the other day with somebody about the Marvel verse and the DC verse, and what's the Marvel verse got out of the gate really, really strong and took the lead coming around the bend. We've got Iron Man followed by Captain America followed by and it's like everybody's all on board on Marvel. And then DC had a really rough start. They tripped at the starting line. The Justice League just didn't pan out the way they wanted it to.
And I never got what people's grief against friggin' Man of Steel was. I didn't think it was a bad movie. Man.
It wasn't. And but now
I'm picky about these comic book movies, man.
As we're seeing, the animated movies picking up steam. James Gunn coming over to what looks like to be a very successful Suicide Squad. The success of Doom Patrol, which is affecting other kind of shows and the way that they're made. Everybody's reaction to the Justice League Snyder Cut.
The convergence of the HBO Max, Warner Brothers, like making everything. The only problem here is, like we talked about, I think last week, where the person in charge of DC Entertainment or Warner Brothers or whatever it is she was like, yeah, the Snyderverse is a one-off thing. It'll never happen again. We're taking steps to make sure there will never again be one director with one vision to make a good movie that people like, but instead it will always be like a run through the channels, go through the office.
Star Wars.
Yeah, like bullshit, type thing.
Star Wars.
And that DC will continue to do everything they can to make sure their movies aren't good, unlike what friggin' Snyderverse, Snyder Cut showed us that it could
possible.
be. It's like, hey, look what happens if one guy's like, this. Now, there are things.
Yeah, one guy's like, just hang on a second. Just let me do it.
Now, there's things that Snyder wanted to do that I've read about and seen that seemed like they were really bad ideas. And he had the kind of people that came in and like, oh, that particular idea is dumb. Get rid of that. And I think you have something. Instead of having a whole like 20 people being like, oh, well, let's just redline your notes. And everyone's like, does anyone have a different colored pen because you can't see anything?
Yeah, too many notes.
Yeah.
And that's a real deal, man. You get enough producers in a room, you get enough people going like, well, my inputs are valuable. And then sometimes they just feel like they got to touch their thing so that they can touch their thing. And then all of a sudden you got 20 people touching the project and it goes all cattywampus, see? But yeah. Velvet Sin asks, y'all should do a Schlock Cinema showing of David Hasselhoff's Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I'm always down to watch that movie. Yeah, it's the best. It's actual Nick Fury, not Sam Jackson, Ultimate Universe, trash Nick Fury they've made worse in the movies. I want my real, like, Infinity Formula, cigar, World War II surviving cool boy Nick Fury.
Were you there when I did the Schlock Cinema of both the old Captain America movie and the Fantastic Four movie?
No, because I would have been mad stoked on the what's his name, Salinger, J.D. Salinger's son, Matt Salinger. I would have been mad stoked on the Matt Salinger Captain America, unless you watched the one where he wore the dumbass motorcycle helmet and had the clear shield.
That one was pretty dumb.
Yeah, that one's real dumb.
That one's pretty
I'll
dumb.
defend 90s Cap, man. I'll defend that movie.
I won't. Dan says, Bo just hates producers. I don't hate producers. I hate interruption of the creative process. And, some producers are pretty good. But when you get too many of them, it's just like, hang on, guys. Hang on. What are you doing here?
Velvet Santa also says that Mel Brooks should have done a Plastic Man movie in the 80s.
Honestly, I'm
down for a Plastic Man movie anytime.
Plastic Man, I think if DC had the head start that Marvel has gotten in, our just kind of cultural, importance meter, Plastic Man would have been Deadpool. Like a good Plastic Man.
Well, Plastic Man can be like a PG Deadpool.
Yeah, I mean, or it could be a not PG Deadpool. Like Plastic Man, you could take it either way.
I wouldn't want to see a R-rated Plastic Man. I don't think it would be fun, and I think it would stray from the character.
But also don't want to see like a
PG-13 Plastic Man.
CGI PG Minion style Plastic Man.
No,
where it's like, my butt, meep meep moop, and that doesn't.
That's what you'll get.
I know.
PG-13 Plastic Man would be cool. Which, you know what? Talking about DC movies and things like that, The Rock had announced that Black Adam is pushed back like another year.
Everything's pushed back. They're going to push it back so far that The Rock's going to be president at that point.
Hey, speaking of, did you see that 46% of Americans said that they would vote for Dwayne Johnson if he ran for president? And he made a statement about that. He was like, well, I appreciate it. I like the support. And if that ever happens, I'll be happy to be a public servant. But, right now I'm kind of doing my thing. But you know what, though? I think the presidency could use some franchise Viagra. They've tried. They've tried everything. They tried.
Oh man.
Race change. They're like, hey, but what if this is kind of hip? This is cool. And then they're like, oh well, that's done. Let's flip it and go with like Satan or whatever reality show thing. However you see that. And then they're like, it didn't work out so much. What if we bring in a female lead and bring back an old character? And right now, so far, not going so hot, right? People are lukewarm on it.
What's the sequel going to be?
Franchise Viagra. There you go.
Just put The Rock in there.
Yeah, he's franchise Viagra.
Send him in, coach.
He's multi-ethnic. He has the wrestling background thing like Jesse Ventura.
He's already bald, so his hair is not going to change color like every president.
Yeah, it's gonna be the best.
Yeah, and he's just everybody's going to smell what he's passing through the House and the Senate, I guess. I don't know. I just celebrity presidents. I mean, I in a parallel universe, Arnold Schwarzenegger would have been my president, but he can't be.
But instead, you have someone who's friends with Schwarzenegger. Franchise Viagra.
So does that mean can the VP be not born in the U.S.? Could we have a double ticket Rock and Schwarzenegger where it's like
Dan's coming in with the right idea?
Camacho.
Yeah. Mountain Dew, Alejandro.
Yeah.
He was a wrestling champion. See, it worked for Camacho.
It's what plants crave. Anyway, speaking of the Minions, though, did you see this? This week there was a new sort of teaser trailer for the Ghostbusters movie that has been made and never going to be released. And Bill Murray said he was duped into being in it, and Paul Rudd's in it, and now all the things. But they released another little teaser trailer with baby Stay Puffs.
Oh yeah, it is. I forgot that ever existed. The
Ghostbusters movie that everybody was, Ghostbusters Legacy.
What did happen to it? There's been no news about that at all.
It's just sitting in the vaults, man, waiting for the opportune moment to be released in theaters.
After the last one,
I know, but it's of Reitman blood. It's all about family. But when you start throwing in Stay Puft Minions, where they're like, meep, meep, look at us, we're cute, ha, ha, ha. And if, I swear to God.
It doesn't need to make a comeback at all, Stay Puft, because it was unique to that movie. The whole reason there was a Stay Puft is because Ray thought of the Stay Puft Man.
He was the form of Gozer the Gozerian.
There's no reason for Stay Puft to come back in any form ever for any reason.
Yeah,
that was the one time.
In the third metric hex of the Voldrani, Gozer returned to the form of a giant slore! And Gozer has different forms, not a freaking bag of marshmallows.
Who didn't clear their mind? Ray?
Yeah. You don't, it doesn't make any, it's just, it's one of those scenes where you're just it's so clearly baiting that it doesn't fit into the pre-existing narrative, and if a baby Slimer comes out with like Baby Yoda vibes going like, goo goo gaga hot dogs, and, no
reason for it. And since it's not set in New York, there's no reason for Slimer to be around either. Everyone loves Slimer. Don't put him in it. He doesn't need to be there. Velvet Santa said that Ernie Hudson deserves a standalone Ghostbusters movie. I would watch like a Winston Zedmore.
Winston Zedmore spinoff.
Yeah.
Just a working man, just busting ghosts. Just out here busting. Like
busting makes me feel good.
It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And that show would make me feel good.
Yeah. I would watch a Winston Zedmore thing.
He's got the tools. He's got the talent.
And he'll believe in whatever you tell him if the money's right.
He's seen shit that'll turn you white.
Yeah. Dude, Winston rules. Ernie Hudson is awesome always. I would definitely watch that.
Ernie Hudson is one of those dudes that I just always love seeing him on screen.
I imagine that he's like a super nice guy.
He's got to be the coolest of dudes, and had a really cool career. I mean, never had like a major knockout lead role, but he's always been in a lot of solid movies. And every time he's in a movie, he's just comforting on screen. You just like want to be his homie all the time. You're like, oh yeah, it's Ernie Hudson. Like, let's go get a burger, Ernie.
You know what? Velvet Santa said baby Walter Pex. Now, I don't know about that, but what if they wrote it in that he died and he becomes a ghost and he's a dickless ghost?
Oh my gosh. This is correct. This man has no penis.
Yeah. Would that not be best? That would be the best.
I would. That would be funny.
You know what? Talking about movies that'll never exist and movies being pushed back, Paramount has announced that they've pushed back pretty much every one of their friggin' movies ever. Mission Impossible 7 has had a delay again, which has pushed back the production on Mission Impossible 8, which they already had planned on starting working on. Top Gun release has been pushed back. They've rescheduled some movies to 2023 already. There was like one movie that they moved up, and I can't remember what it was. It moved up by like a month or two, something like that. And apparently there's a Jackass movie that's coming out this year. It's been pushed to October.
Bam tried to sue the Jackass guys because they were like, Bam, you can't be in this movie unless you like stop being a raging drug addict.
Unless you get healthy or something.
And they kind of forced him into rehab. And of course, Bam. He was like,
that would be the ultimate like prank on your friend Skip for the movie. They're like, yo, and then we got Bam healthy, and
We threw him in an isolation chamber and yo, check out Withdrawal.
That would be really good. And they've announced another J.J. Abrams Star Trek.
Yes, they did, and I'm not feeling good about it, especially now.
How does that happen when the third one was like zero success?
I mean, they're just grasping at straws, man. There's so many weird new shows that are popping up though. There's the animated Trek world called like Below Bottom Bunk or
Below Decks.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a dirty like pun for that.
Well, because apparently that's the whole show. They're like, what if Star Trek just talked about wieners? And they're like, whoa, what? You go in the sex brig because you're horny brig or whatever.
It's just the Ryza episodes, just animated.
I don't know. I haven't wasted any of my time. I've just seen all of the memes. I don't have Paramount Plus.
But then there's other shows like, Kate Mulgrew is coming back, reprising her role as Captain Janeway in an animated deal.
Yeah, and apparently Patrick Stewart went on the talk or whatever and personally invited Whoopi Goldberg to return as Guinan for Picard Season 2, which now that we have John Delancey coming back as Q.
I love Guinan, but Whoopi now is kind of weird me out.
But maybe you can see what Guinan's powers were.
God, I would
love
love that.
Q with, and Q climbed up into the windows, remember? And Guinan's like hissing at him.
Oh,
and
dude,
stuff.
Guinan is my favorite team.
The only thing is, how are they going to explain Guinan aging? They can explain Q aging by him saying, "Oh, I just choose to show up old because you're
old."
Yeah, that's easy. That's the most cop-out easy thing you can do because Q can do whatever he wants. But how do you explain Guinan aging? They're like, oh, she's been alive for thousands of years and never aged a day.
Now she's old.
Now she's like 40 years older.
Who knows? They could do that plastic face crap. That I mean, I don't want it. I don't like it. But
now I haven't watched Picard, but apparently the special effects budget on it is not.
It's not huge. It's not huge.
It's like your standard Star Trek special.
But
effects
they do
budget.
a pretty good job with what they've got.
Well, I'm not. Star Trek's always done.
But I'm pretty sure that the next season of Picard is going to have a little bit bigger budget. To Vince's thing, Quentin Tarantino, yes, officially out of Star Trek. There's talks of Picard getting a younger version of himself cast in many episodes of the new series.
Velvet Santa said, "Is that a self-sealing stem bolt in your tricorder case?" Star Trek.
Those
humor.
stem bolts.
I'm going to horny jail. What's this? Younger Picard? Which younger Picard?
I just read a little blurb about it the other day that they were saying that Jean-Luc Picard, it was like clickbait, and it was like, yes, you heard it correct. They're going to recast Jean-Luc Picard. And then you click, and it's like, but he's younger. This younger version of Picard.
Who's the dude that was Mad Max in the one that I didn't like, and he played a young Picard in the movie, in the Star Trek movie?
Oh, the Fury Road guy?
Yeah. Tom Hardy. Thanks,
yeah.
Santa. Yeah. Are they going to have Tom Hardy be Picard again?
No, he's too hardy now. He's just a big old boy.
They're going to bring in old Scottish dude. What's his name? James McAvoy.
Or just get the little kid that played him in the 90s that was just like...
Oh, the little kid?
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Just find it. Dig him up. He's probably like, have smoking crack out of a light bulb in a Motel 8 in Chattanooga.
Wow. I hope that's not true. I hope that he's doing very well.
Like at a lot of these websites we're reading news, like there's if you don't have your ad blocker on, there's like all these little clickbaits. It's like, look at this star, where they are now. And it's just like, 6 hand jobs for smack in San Diego Motor Freeway. It's bad, man.
Well, we were talking about the de-aging of Guinan earlier, and Carl says something about Will Smith. Talked to Will Smith about de-aging. Yeah, how'd that movie go?
But oddly enough, if you had followed the news a couple of weeks ago, Gemini Man managed to get a huge resurgence in popularity from streaming, and because people were bored and didn't have anything else to watch, and it had
and Netflix likes to push some. I mean, because he did that movie, the Fantasy Cop thing. So they have some relationship with
that
him.
movie. Yeah. I hope.
Well, I'm just saying Netflix will protect their stars. Like when they wanted to put Chappelle's Show on on Netflix, and Chappelle's like, hey man, I'm not getting anything from that. Comedy Central, Paramount is still screwing me on this whole thing. It brings back a bad time in my life, and I would prefer it if you took it off there. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm just saying I would like to. And they're like, you know what, Chappelle? You make us a lot of money.
There you go.
Screw it.
And somehow they still keep letting David Spade do things. So, I mean, they just take care of their people, I guess.
Spade's funny, man. I don't know what to tell you on
sometimes. But I just it's funny seeing Jim and I, man. You go through these review based click. This brings up kind of another systemic problem that I want to kind of talk about. That I don't get enough time to talk about, even though I love my soapboxes. But something I've hated on the Drive-in Speakerbox for over a decade now on the show is review based culture. Like when reviews have reviews, that's a problem. And I know I talked about, like, because people are like, did you find
reaction videos to reaction videos? Yeah,
they're like, did you find this review helpful? And you review the review, and then that review gets put up because it's a good review. And anyway, but this review culture, it's not a measurement of whether or not it's good or people actually enjoyed it or if it's better than something else. I see, the Tick season 2 was a victim of this problem.
Where's my Snyder Cut people at to get my Tick season 3?
Yeah, where's Ben Edlund? We need Tick season 3 coming out. But what happened is Amazon Prime released The Tick. I bet if they released Tick season 2 in the middle of the pandemic, it would have been the number one. It would have been like bigger than The Boys, probably. And but what happened is they waited for the reviews to come in off that first couple of episodes, and they're like, well, it doesn't have 5-star, doesn't have 100,000 5 stars. Not a lot of people are watching it, so
what the first ones are good because they're like, hey, didn't you look different like 5 minutes ago? Never mind that, chum.
Yeah. Whoa, what? But they canned it before people even got to see it because they were too focused on the clicks and the stars and the reviews.
Well,
but
just
now
like the first live action Tick, they canceled it before they aired the first episode.
And now that it's had time to be out there for a minute and people have been watching it, it's got shit tons of 5-star reviews, like tens of thousands of good reviews, whereas some of the stuff that they're putting tons of money in of season 8 of Who Gives a Crap is getting like 100 3-star reviews.
Yeah, and they'll never make a Tick season 3 because we tried contacting everybody, but everyone had moved on to different projects and we just scheduling conflicts, so it'll never happen because we forced it to never happen.
Yeah, it's weird, man. And then you see movies on like Netflix. People are bored and they're just like, "Yeah, I'll watch this." Yeah, did you like it? Well, I didn't hate it. Thumbs up. And they go, "Well, Gemini Man has outperformed. It's the number 1 performing movie in America. Holy crap!" And it's you just data metrics is not a very good way to just completely live your life. There's, I want to talk about Menk because I saw that a little bit in old Hollywood, but I want to mention a new show that's on HBO Max that I just started watching called Made for Love. I don't know if you guys have seen this show on HBO Max. It's about this guy who runs a company, Gogol, which is clearly Google, and he develops this chip that you can implant in your brain and link to your romantic partner and know everything about them. But of course, it's a terrible idea and it's awful, and he's kind of a weird megalomaniac. But he injects it into his wife's head without her consent, and she's just like, "What the hell is going on?" And he's just their whole relationship's measured on the data that he brings in. He's like, well, why isn't she liking this? Because all the data that I'm getting from these, these devices and tools that I have are saying I should do this. And it's just, it really illustrates an interesting point about when you're not taking the kind of human gut instinct, the human, intuition and the emotional side of, like, not everything is data. And it's a pretty good show. I think it's only 6 episodes in. But when you do this with movies and you're basically making procedurally generated movies, you're losing out on those hunches where people go, you know what, I got this idea for a movie and I think it's going to be a winner. And speaking of Menk, which I want to talk about later in the show, I finally got around to watching that movie, which is about the guy who wrote Citizen Kane, and nobody liked the guy. He wrote it. Everybody was just like, yeah, you washed up, kid. You're out of this town. And he was a troublemaker, but he wrote quite possibly one of the most challenging films of that time, which has still managed to be one of the most influential movies ever made, in a time where nobody thought it would be made. It was like, yeah, no, it's gonna be a stinker, and I think we're getting so far out of this time where big studios aren't going to be making any interesting movies, but we're also entering a time where anybody can make a movie. And I think we're about to hit a weird renaissance of DIY independent film.
There's been several directors that have already started filming on just a smartphone. When Shyamalan did the multiple personality one with James McAvoy.
Split.
Yeah, wasn't a bunch of that done on like a phone? And there was some other movie that some director, a big director, did on just an iPhone and stuff like that. Before we move too far away from it, if you're not seeing the comments, if you're not here, we can't comment on all of them, but Velvet Santa's contributing a lot of comedy gold in these comments.
He's on fire!
Yeah, so for like your like made for love or whatever, why are you in incognito mode, honey?
I mean, it's actually a pretty interesting show. I'd recommend it. There's not a whole lot of shows right now that I like to watch because I don't like sitcoms and I don't like procedural generated content. But this has got an interesting new idea that it's got a little science fiction element, that it's not like lasers and spaceships. It's using technology in a way that we don't have yet to make us address problems that we do have.
Well,
and that's what makes good science fiction. That's why Star Trek's cool.
Well, since we were talking about weird worlds that of the unknown and old films like friggin' Red Bud and all that kind of thing, one last bit of news. Did you see that this past week, Italy finally ended their government censorship of film?
What?
Yeah, they abolished government censorship of film. They've had it in place since like 1913, and since 1944, they've banned like 400 Italian movies, 130 American movies, and like 320 movies from other countries, plus over 10,000 films that were forcibly edited to remove scenes that they deemed not suitable for the Italian public.
What is we gonna get? What's that movie like 7 Nights of Sodom or whatever? Are we finally gonna get the director's cut of that one?
I don't know. I don't know if this means that they can now access movies that were banned, or if just no more will be banned. But the big thing is that it means for Italian film distributors, they now get to decide the ratings and run a ratings board for the films. And they've established a new commission that has people involved in film, an education board, and animal rights activists. So they'll review all of the ratings of films and gauge whether the distributor of the film has rated it correctly for the audience. But there will no longer be any government oversight or censorship of film in first world modern countries. So that's kind of cool.
That's pretty interesting.
One of the biggest cinema countries with the biggest cinema scene.
Oh yeah,
I guess. Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Italian cinema is it's as robust as it is hilarious. Like Italian movies, like if you don't know giallo horror and the spaghetti western eras, and Italy has had a very 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 rich film history. Especially when you're comparing it to other parts of Europe, everybody likes to think of Hollywood, but we make all the big glitzy glamour ones, but the 1960s and 70s Hong Kong action, all the way up into the 90s, really Hong Kong action was amazing. You've got the Italian scene. You've got it's funny because like the UK never really had a big movie scene. I mean, they make films all the time. Yeah, everybody does, but they're just nothing that great. And Canada, believe it or not, like the Film Board of Canada is actually pretty awesome, and a lot of animated, like a really cool art films come out of Canada. Believe it or not, because the Film Board of Canada is very supportive, and they're just really cool shooting films in Canada.
Well, you also got the three big ones from India, man. You got
of course, Bollywood,
Tamil, and Telugu.
Yeah, lots of that's something that we talked about on the podcast earlier today. That's coming out this week with the Arkansas Cinema Society is one of the things that I hope that with Minari getting a lot of Oscar nominations.
Korea has a
huge cool movie scene.
Yeah.
But with films like Minari making waves again on kind of after movies like Parasite kicked the door open for subtitled films essentially to be not just lumped into the foreign category.
How many people do you know that are already obsessed with like J-pop or K-pop and Korean dramas? Because I've known so many people that are just obsessed with K-dramas.
Because it's fun,
I guess, man.
But I'm just looking forward to a time where watching a foreign film is not such an alien concept.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Jake's foreign films. But you know what? Everyone's like, oh, I watched this British movie. And I was like, yeah, it's basically like watching an American movie just like shot on Betacam. Like, I don't know what the deal is with all British movies up until about 2003 looking like they were shot on a home camcorder.
Well, it's like I didn't say anything about Japanese cinema because most of it is very, very cheap. It's hard to find a really well done, big budget production in Japan because they don't have movie goers. Now, they might make movies, but no one watches them because movies are crazy expensive and people don't really go out to see them.
And also, you think about locations. Filming locations is tough. When you're
that's why in Kyoto they have Eigo Mura.
That's why in Japan they have a lot of animated stuff, is because it's a lot easier to do that than it is to go filming locations. I think that's one of the reasons that the United States was able to have such a big, robust film scene is because locations are cheap, and we have basically in one country everything that you could ask for. You've got coasts, you've got snow, you've got tropical, you've got desert, you've got mountains, you've got forest, you've got swamp, you've got it all. You've got 3 varieties of beaches. You name it, and you could just for a long time just go there and be somebody, hey, we're shooting a movie. Oh, really? All right, well, come on in, man. And they still do that stuff now. So a lot of these other countries didn't have that ability to have such interesting tools at their disposal for making fantastical stories. But anyway, let me talk about Menk real quick then. Speaking of creating fantastical stories, I don't want to go into a huge big review about it because the movie's been out for a minute, but it is Oscar season and everybody's talking about it, and I just watched it last night because it was one of the few Oscar movies I hadn't got a chance to watch yet. But David Fincher, if you know David Fincher, he's been nominated for like 20 some odd Academy Awards. He's won 7. Dude makes good movies. Is what he does. And then of course teaming up with Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor to do the music for this, which is very much like doom 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 doom. It's like the old 1930s and 40s. Oh, dude,
Trent Reznor did like big band.
Yeah, man. I mean, they're actually a really great team when it comes to film music. And this movie, God, Hollywood loves love letters to Hollywood, but this is also, it's kind of like a love letter to Hollywood, also with a little bit of hate mail rolled into it. But it's the story, of the guy who wrote Citizen Kane, Mankiewicz. Everybody call him Menk for short, and he wasn't really liked in Hollywood. It's kind of about how he came up with the story, wrote the story, a lot of parallels with stuff that was going on in Hollywood at the time with Paramount and MGM, and it's a very difficult movie to follow. It's shot to be like an old 1930s or late 30s, early 40s film. A lot of wipes, a lot of fade outs, a lot of just overly dramatic lighting. But then, of course, you start to see a lot of modern camera tricks. And the one thing that was a little bit off-putting throughout the whole movie, and I get what they were doing, and it was kind of cool for like a second, but it didn't really work as a whole because I'm a guy that watches movies from the 30s and 40s, and the audio. the guy who did the final sound mix. And I mean, as an audio guy myself, I respect what this guy was doing, but he wanted to make it sound like old and rustic, right? You know, and because of those movies, they didn't have all the fancy microphones and recording equipment and lav mics and very fancy, you know, omnidirectional and shotgun mics and all this kind of stuff. But he basically took the mix and then played it in a big echoey room and then recorded the room mix. And like that was, and it kind of sounded like this the whole time, you know, and everything was really echoey and strange. And it was okay for like a minute. I'm like, okay, you know, I've heard this before. You know, I've watched old films and in certain room scenes, because they didn't have the same technology to be whipping mics around or strapping mics onto everybody. You know, some things sound a little roomy. But you also hear the room. That's the thing that I can't believe that this guy who's a freaking mixer didn't think about, is because the acoustics of rooms change. So you can't have the same perfectly recorded audio mix played back in the same echoey, cavernous room for a small, intimate dining room scene versus a big banquet hall scene versus a scene where you're riding around in a car. And, you know, it was normalized through the whole movie, which drove me nuts, because it's like, no, that's even in the 1930s, that's not how this would sound. It would sound rough around the edges and a little bit cavernous, sure, but, you know, it's just, he wasn't thinking enough. And I applaud his idea, but it didn't deliver for a guy who's just very anal about it.
But not everything has to sound like that either. I mean, they called them sound studios. Like, they're designed around being able to...
Well, and a lot of the stuff back in those days was shot on soundstage. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of it did have a very homogeneous sound, but they still had boom operators back then, guys. You know, I mean, they're getting those mics in there for my close-up, Mr. DeVille. Vern says strap-on mics, new band name. Love it. But, you know, other than that, you know, and it's kind of weird. The jumping around didn't bother me, because it's, again, very reminiscent of Citizen Kane and how it goes back and forth through kind of memory vignettes through modern day. But there was a lot of political stuff going on, and a lot of just, you know, that quippy 1930s and 40s banter that was popular at the time. Just, God, we just don't talk like that anymore, and it's weird to follow when people start talking real fast, and, you know, and blah blah blah, and using weird, strange words, and about just shit. I don't know. I can't even do a good impression of it, because it's just so strange. But anyway, Gary Oldman, as Vince said on Twitch, he said Gary Oldman playing a guy who's 40 also stretched believability. Yes, I don't know. There was one scene that goes, "I'm 43," and the dude looked like he was 60, and I'm like, yee.
Have you seen some of the people that are 40? I don't know if you've been on online dating or our local bookend page for the county jail. But
I mean, okay,
when you see what people's ages are, you're like, what?
Some
really?
hard living out there.
Yeah.
Vern says, to be honest, he can't stand Citizen Kane. And, you know, to your point, it's not for everybody. Honestly, it took me a while to warm up to it. It's, you know, it's one of those things, until I really read about it, until I kind of studied it and figured out, you know, what made it interesting. Its existence is more interesting than it is. Technically, it's very impressive. Again, for its time and its subject matter, its pacing, the way that it's edited, the way that it's directed, it's just, for its time, it was something that was unbelievable. And you know, you're talking back when Universal Studios, they were basically what they are now. They're like, let's get Dracula and Frankenstein and make them beat each other up, because both of those movies were really good. And and also throw in the werewolf, and, you know, that was real stuff that was going on, and they actually even referenced that a little bit.
Yeah,
and those movies were awesome.
Put some nods on them, because Wolfman's got
nods.
Yeah.
But it was also one of the interesting about Citizen Kane, and man, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But pulling out a little film school here, it was one of the first films back in those days to show the ceiling. because showing the ceiling, you rarely shot on location, and you know that was another thing that Citizens Kane did to get that realistic feel is shooting in locations, because most places were sound stages and didn't have ceilings, and you know you get this very sort of, it became a little more not necessarily claustrophobic, but you get a more interesting sense of dramatic space because there was a lot more upshots, and you see, and it was something that you just don't see.
Yeah, like Vern just said, yeah, the way it was filmed with frame ups, shot sequences was really good, but it's a super boring movie, man. Yeah, and
well,
you know
yeah.
what? I don't like it, but I don't care for dramas. I don't like drama. Not really my thing. I like action, comedy, maybe drama with more of a
Dramedy?
purpose. No, like something with more of a purpose. Like if it's like a true story type thing or something, maybe. But yeah.
Well, Blake asks, he's like, thoughts on good movies that are about making movies. And so kind of like at the beginning of what I was just saying, you know, Hollywood loves its love letter to itself. You know, you've got you know, a lot of I mean, I think the closest example I can think of in recent years is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is again another movie that's about making movies.
Disaster Artist.
And Disaster Artist is another movie about making movies. And you know, these movies, it's
Terror Firmer.
Barton Fink, you know, as Vince just said in the comments, you know, these movies are it's interesting, and they're for you know, as Blake, another person who works in the film industry, they're really interesting to see not necessarily an accurate portrayal of how movies are made, but behind the you pull the curtain back, because there is a magic that happens behind the magic. And those are pretty. Oh my God, Velvet Santa over saying noises off is it's actually a funny movie about making a play, and yes, it's incredibly meta. The stage play is really good, and if you've never seen, I think John Ritter's in the movie. Very funny movie about making it's a production about making a production and how things all go wrong.
Like Bowfinger.
Or The Producers. Which is, you know, speaking of producers. But anyway, you know, I tend to enjoy them, you know, and I think that they show a reality of this industry by showing kind of a not reality of this industry to make people kind of, I don't know, get a little more comfortable with how movie magic is sometimes that.
Boogie Nights. Zach and Miri make a porno.
You're a star.
Did we just stumble across like a hidden genre of movies about making movies?
It's not a hidden genre. It's movies for guys about making. What was the
movies for guys who like movies?
Yeah, movies for guys like TBS Superstation. Yeah, movies about making movies it's a genre that doesn't get visited a lot, but when it does, it usually takes a very talented person, because if you also think about it,
Man from La Mancha.
Man from La Mancha is another great movie about making movies. But the hard part about
who killed Don Quixote? That's
the documentary was called
the
documentary about the making of the movie about making a movie. Yeah, it gets deep, but it's hard because and I think why people are so fascinated by it is because you've got basically double gear, double crew, double everything. You know, how do you light a set that's for camera that's being lit for camera? You know, it's weird and it's pretty strange. Blake says the vampire movie, that's Shadow of I want to say Shadow of the Vampire with Willem Dafoe. Yeah, about Max von Schreck playing Count Orlok in Nosferatu.
Vince here calling me out, saying anything that's not in the Fast and Furious universe for me is a hidden genre.
And you know,
what's that movie about? Not about cars.
Not about cars
and family.
But no, you know, Blake, that film, Shadow of the Vampire, that's again kind of a sleeper movie. If that's not your jam, you're gonna be like, this movie sucks. But if you kind of are into it,
sucks, but
it's good. It's a great movie. Willem Dafoe nails that role, and also it shows a really interesting side of what it's like to make silent films. What the Chaplin movie, you know, showed some of those weird moments you know, I guess that was Robert Downey Jr. Geez, that was a long time ago. But you see the weird side of what silent films looked like back in the day. And Velvet Santa says Scrooged. That's a stretch.
It was a live TV stage play.
Yeah, I don't know if that was about making. It wasn't about making movies. There's a scene where they're making the thing. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of movies there that you can kind of pull out of the old hat, and they're fun. I think they're a lot of fun, and it's also fun for me if I'm watching vicariously through someone else's eyes that don't know what a Dana Dolly grip, that 10K, gaffer, all these fun film terms, and I'm like, okay, that's what this is, that's what that is, that right there, that's a jib, and that's a techno crane, and and you get to like feel real cool and relevant for like a second, because most of the time nobody gives a crap what you're talking about. So
I have a really good one. Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. It's a movie about people making a movie and the guys that are trying to stop that movie.
This is true. It's about producers. Going back to Dan, State and Maine. State and Maine's another fun film. God, I mean, the list can get endless now that we're just sitting here thinking about it. But unfortunately, we don't have enough time to think of all of them because we are almost out of time. We're almost out of time. Anything else you want to jump into the show before we gotta scoot there?
That's all I had this week, man. I don't have anything else. I was hoping to talk to y'all about Mortal Kombat next week, so I guess it'll be a little bit longer. So,
Vince says the fact that we've already had a million examples shows really how hidden this genre is.
Hey, bro, listen. I don't remember any one of the movies that we just discussed being about family or living your life a quarter mile at a time. So.
Well, there you go.
And not one of them had Corona as a, little advertiser. So.
Oh, man. Well, all right. Well, we're going to get out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Drive-in Speakerbox. You can always catch us out on wherever you find your MP3 podcast situations. Just Google for us. But if you want to listen to the show live and participate in the live chat over on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, look us up. Drive-in Speakerbox. Usually it's just / the Drive-in Speakerbox. Just search for it. Find it. Share it. Love us. We love you back. And we'll be back next week talking about more movies, man. That's what we do. So, as always, I'm the boom operator.
I'm the grip.
And we will see you guys next time. Bye. Bye now.